Welcome to another episode of The Mind of OPEX. Today I got another video for you. As you can see, going back up north, just made it into Virginia. And came down here to pick up a trailer. I bobtailed 630 miles to get down here yesterday, which is technically by far the longest I've ever bobtailed. Which there's nothing really to it, but going down through the mountains and shit, it's you gotta be careful, and I don't suggest it. Anyways, what's up? I want to talk about. Give me a second, because I am driving here. Okay, so I want to talk about something today, and it's going to dive into a bunch of different videos I've done in the past, and I'm just going to put it all together for you for this video, because there's a lot of new people to my channel. Now, I've talked before about evidence, and I've always said that research is not evidence. It's the least, it's not accurate in reality. It's just somebody saying something, somebody typing something and say this is real and this is fact. But of course we already know that if you Google milk is good for you. Boom, bunch of shit's gonna pop up on Google. Milk is good for you. Milk is bad for you. Boom. Everything on Google comes up why milk is bad for you. And very contradictory. There is no objective truth when it comes to research. Now you can siphon through the information, no problem, right? Siphon through the information, pick and choose, whatever, but this isn't real. Now I want to dive into that, and I also want to dive into the aspect of fantasy. And fantasy, watch my video on something like fantasy and Santa Claus or some shit like that I did probably around last holiday season, about a year ago. And I want to talk about that because in that video I talked about, well, how fantasy, there's a time and place. There's nothing wrong with fantasy, but if you mix up real and fake, like what's objectively true, like there's really unicorns, and you surround your life like that, there's really Santa Claus, there's a problem because you are deluding yourself from objective reality, which is what you should be surrendering to is reason and evidence. You don't surrender to a story, right? Research, Santa Claus. Don't surrender to what people say, surrender to the reason and evidence. And always change accordingly. If you haven't noticed to me, there's a couple videos I've made where I discussed, where I backtracked on stuff because of new information. Now, just because information comes to you does not mean that you have to surrender to information. But, just like I said, you Googled why milk is bad. Let's say you and your spouse are having an argument over milk. And you're like, I heard milk is good. Milk is good, it cures osteoporosis, and this is information, right? Doesn't mean it's true, just because you have information. Then your spouse goes, well, Google, why is milk bad for you? And boom, then you show your spouse and it goes, look, surrender to this. But that's research. That is not objectively true. Now, if both of you were to drink milk and one of you starts having a problem, well, then you can objectively show that, hey, here are the results from this, and now we can say it's bad or whatever, right? And that's a good way to identify if it's real or not. Now, if you have, let's say there's thousands of studies of something like milk is bad for you, well, you can look at these studies and be like, research studies. When you research 1,000 different studies, and let's say 900 of them showed negative results or something like that, then you can be like, hey, here's evidence, right? But if you just say this and one person gives you information, it doesn't mean it's true. Even if everyone believes it, it doesn't mean it's true. I mean, what was it, 500 years ago, before Copernicus, everyone thought the earth was flat, it doesn't mean it's true. Right? Now, I don't know, even if that idea of the world being flat was something that was well thought of, like as truth, because, again, that's just something somebody told me. That doesn't mean it's true that 500 years ago everyone thought the earth was flat. I gotta see some evidence, right? You can look at any information. It doesn't mean it's true. You look at the Bible, which has been translated thousands of times, and you can barely find any copies before, like, the King James Version, right? Because they don't want you to see that shit, because they changed a lot of shit, right? And when you're looking at the King James Version, which is a revised, translated 15,000 times by 15,000 different rulers and people that want to translate different languages, when you're going through all that, and then you're looking at the King James copy, right? And you say, this is the real version, because, and then everything you surrender to as evidence, because that's what you think the real version is, because it sounds cool. It's Shakespearean, in a sense. The way it sounds, the way it's written. And then you look at the King James Version, and then people go, that's real, that's real. No, it doesn't mean it's real. It does not mean it's real. Now, if you... Okay, so people watch documentaries, and people believe what they hear or see in the documentaries. It's ridiculous. I just watched maybe a couple weeks ago, I made a video, or I saw a video rather, of some documentary claiming that sharks can go up to 35 fucking feet, and they're in the ocean somewhere. And the proof, and this is from a documentary talking about large sharks, the only proof that they claim proof, the only proof that, or evidence that they've had, was that they found a huge whale. I don't know if it was a blue whale, a sperm whale, some huge whale, right? And in the tail, it had a 5 foot or so chop taken out of it. And the way you identify the tail, you look at the tail, and it was only the front teeth that got the tail. Bit it right off that whole flesh. And because of that, they said, well, what's in the ocean that can bite that? Well, that big, it's got to be a 35, and they're measuring it, and they're trying to figure out, okay, well, you take a 25-foot great white, you add 10 feet to it, the mouth is going to expand another foot or whatever, right? And this is the evidence that they claim to have for the whole documentary. So people are like, there's huge sharks out there for 35 feet. And the first thing I did, I couldn't watch the whole documentary. At that point, I'm thinking to myself, what would happen if it was just bitten by a shark when it was a young fucking whale, right? Now it's about 80-foot long whale, right? What happened when it was 20 foot long, right? A regular shark must have bit its tail. And then what would happen is when the whale grew, the proportion size of that fucking bite got bigger. And I put that in the comments because I think for myself, and this is what I'm really basically trying to get you guys to understand, is thinking for yourself and use your own reason and logic towards the evidence. Because if somebody says that this is evidence because it was a shark of this magnitude, well, there's a problem, right? Because the whale's 80 or 100 foot long now, and the proportion size is pretty big. Well, when the whale got bigger, right, you would have thought that, it would make sense if it got bit when it was young, rather than recently, especially when you look at the tail and it looks like it hasn't been bit in fucking ever, right? Because it healed all the way over. Now, I do this. I think logically towards every information I hear. Everything I hear, I think logically, and I will surrender to real evidence, even if I don't want to believe it, because that's how you should live your life. But you should not surrender to what somebody says in a documentary. Here's the evidence, and this is my reasoning behind it. They have to be this, we've done the math. And when they say shit like that, people tend to believe this shit. Now, I know a lot of people that believe what they hear. So I was at Thanksgiving dinner. And my aunt likes to talk about things, right? Things that she looks up, and she only makes organic type foods for the family, and everything's got to be nutritious and no fucking gluten, and, you know, stay away from processed foods and all that shit, right? But she also has another area where she likes to discuss about weird shit. I was talking about prepping, and I said, well, if you want to, I have things that are prepped. I have firearms, I have so many things of water that we rotate, and beans, like 80, what are we at? 100 pounds of beans, 100 pounds of rice, or something like that, right? And I have all this stuff just in case shit hits the fan. We have solar panels, and I was talking about to her about this. And she goes, well, I've never been a prepper. I really wanted gold. And I asked her, I was like, why do you want gold? What's that going to do when shit hits the fan? Now, if you haven't watched my video, why you shouldn't buy gold, and you're thinking about buying gold, or you've already bought in gold, if you already bought it, you already got duped. There's nothing you can use for gold. If shit hits the fan, you can't take a fucking ounce of gold that you paid $1,500 for, bring it to a farmer and say, I'm starving, take my gold. What's that farmer gonna do with that gold? Kick it in the fucking bushes? You can't go into an iPhone store and buy an iPhone. I have a thing of this, and you can't, there's nothing to purchase. If the dollar collapses, there's nothing to use your gold. Nothing. At best, you can use it as a paperweight. Good job. And I explained that to her. I said, hey, so how are you going to use it? And she goes, I don't know. That people always say that you should be buying gold if shit hits the fan as a prepper. And I explained all this stuff, and then her eyes opened like fucking... She thought for herself and realized, wow, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of people are being duped because people are buying shit that they're fear-mongering you to buy. They say, oh, if shit's going to hit the fan, everything's going to go down, and there's no way to live, there's no way to buy and sell goods. You're going to be screwed because you don't have a garden and you have nothing. But if you had a precious metal, it'll make everything better. Sorry, I'm tying in a lot of different videos in one. So, you know, Alex Jones, he fucking says there's not enough iodine in the food. In fact, there's a conspiracy that the government took out the iodine. So, guess what we have for you guys? New exclusive in the InfoWars store. Here's the fucking iodine. He's selling you what he's fear-mongering you to be scared of, but he has the cure. Government's doing this. Here's the cure. They got chlorine in your fucking bath water, and then you're breathing in the steam, and it's really not good for you. So we have the shower sprout that takes out the chlorine, which in my eyes doesn't really make sense because it's coming out. Where's the chlorine going? But anyway, that's just me. And I'm sure it does work. I'm just thinking. I don't know what it is, but today I've been thinking about vaping again. It just came out of the blue, and I'm like, I want to vape. Hopefully that fucking feeling goes, because I don't want to be vaping anymore. Alright, so understand that information needs to be critically evaluated. Don't just take anyone's word for it, not me. What was it, Buddha? I'm trying to remember the quote. I'm going to butcher this, obviously, like all my quotes, because I have a terrible memory. He said something like, no matter where you heard it, even if it's from me, don't believe it unless it agrees with your way of thinking, or something similar to that. Unless you agree with it yourself, with this information. This information makes sense to you. So don't even believe me or Buddha or Jesus. Don't believe shit unless it agrees with your logic and reasoning. Straight up. Alright, so my aunt also was talking about demons. And I stopped there. I was like, whoa. What demons? well, there's demons. You didn't know that? You didn't read the Bible? And I said, whoa, 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 whoa. Demons, where are these? Can you grab one for me and show me? No? So it's kind of like rights. When I was talking about rights in the past and now this is not what I told her about rights, obviously. But my videos in the past, I've talked about there's no such thing as rights. God-given rights. Where are they? Well, no. You grab your rights, empirically prove that you have them, or you don't have them. There's no such thing as rights. Well, go find this demon. Go find him. Bring him to me so we can evaluate and observe this thing. Then I can be like, okay, it's real. But until you can show me, well, there's nothing scientifically that you can prove. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. And I explained that to her. Grab a demon, give it to me. Then she goes, well, what do you think about Nibiru these days? You know, Planet X? I said, I love talking about this shit, but there's a place for fantasy, right? And I said, have you ever seen Nibiru? She goes, no. Then I said, you only heard about this from sources online, right? You heard about Nibiru, Planet X, and people have their theories about it. And they told their theories online. And then you believed it. Again, we need to distinguish what is fantasy and what is reality. If you don't even see Nibiru, you've never taken a telescope, looked up in the sky at night and said, that is Nibiru, and I have proof because there it is, what do you have? You're blindly believing what somebody has shown you or told you online. It's sad. Also watch my video, The Pros and Cons of the Conspiracy World, or something like that. And I talk about what is good about the conspiracy world, what is bad about the conspiracy world, and how you can improve yourself through conspiracies. But the main topic is still, we're going to be stuck on distinguishing what is real evidence, and surrendering to that. And if that is what you surrender to, that real evidence, but something comes along and disproves that and improves something else, you need to surrender to that. Whatever the newest updated information is that makes sense, that debunks the others, is what you should surrender to. Now, again, not what somebody tells you. I could say Nibiru doesn't exist. Then tomorrow somebody says Nibiru does exist. There's a 5-mile-an-hour wind that's changing through the Earth's atmosphere, and maybe in 10 years it'll be 10 miles an hour, and then Nibiru's gonna rush around us. Really? You're gonna fucking listen to this shit? Climate change. Another one. People are just... Where do you see it? Do you see it? Where's climate change? Find it for me. I don't see it. It was a lot hotter this year than last year, but guess what? 2 years ago, it was a lot colder than it was the year before that. Fucking start making more sense, guys. Don't just surrender to Al Gore's theory of climate change. Because it's not really his theory. He's getting paid to push this shit. Follow the money. So, again, we need to distinguish what's real from fake. Fantasy's a great thing. I love talking about Nibiru. I love talking about aliens. I love talking about conspiracies. I love all this shit, right? And it doesn't mean that a lot of these conspiracies aren't true, right? But there's a place where you should put fantasy, and there's a place where you should put reality. Surrender to reality. Fantasy is entertainment. Fantasy is fun. So think about this. Find out in your life, are you surrendering to fantasy? Because if you are, you're doing something wrong. Are you telling your kids about Santa Claus and Santa Claus is real? Or are you saying the story of Santa Claus and explaining why it's not real? Come on. Don't be a piece of shit to your family. Tell your kids about Santa if you want. But do not tell them Santa Claus is real. You're doing a lot of harm, and you're showing to your kids that their parents are going to lie to them. So, come on. Surrender to the real evidence. Empirical evidence reigns supreme. Anecdotal evidence would be right under that, which is a decent chunk of evidence for you to evaluate. Below that, once you get down to research-based evidence, that is not even evidence. Don't surrender to what somebody says. I don't give a fuck if it's Donald Trump. I don't give a fuck who it is. I don't care if it's Neil deGrasse Tyson, whatever fuck his name is. I don't care who it is. Do not surrender to their information. Pay attention. Realize what's in front of you. Objectively prove it. If you can't, put it in the fantasy category. And again, nothing wrong with fantasy. I like my fantasy. But, yeah. That's enough for this video. I don't want to go on forever. I just want people to understand that a lot of people are in their fantasy realm. When you're watching football on TV, that's fantasy. It's you can prove that it's happening, but it's fantasy. Like, it's a game. People are playing games. They're playing roles. When you're watching a movie, they're acting. They're playing roles. It's a game. It's fantasy. It's fun. It's entertainment. But it's not real. People don't fight over resources by playing football, okay? I mean, technically, kind of, they do. You know, the better they are at football, the more resources they get. So, I guess that was actually a bad example. But you know what I'm getting at. There's real wars going on. And shit, people are dying. People are being fucking, like, look at the evidence. And if you're watching a documentary, don't believe it. Don't believe nothing. If you're looking at down on the earth from an airplane, and you're looking through a fucking concave or whatever fuck kind of window it is, it's going to distort your vision, right? You can't just say it's round. You can't say it's concave. You can't say it's flat just by looking through that window, because just by looking through your airplane window, you can see the earth as concave. You can see it as round. You can see it as flat. So, what are you going to believe? The first one you saw? The last one you saw? Come on. Just don't believe in any of that shit. If you can't prove it, fantasy. Straight up. That's the end of this video. Stay tuned for more content. I will definitely be making a video tomorrow. The next day, hopefully. And the next day, I'm doing another long-ass day while we still don't have them e-logs. See you guys.